Welcome to Soul Speak. I'm Talya Pardo, and I'm so excited for our very first episode to welcome Dhiana Sage Barnes to our show. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Dhiana has such a wealth of experience that I feel is not even done justice to if I list the titles and the areas of expertise that you have. I feel that we're barely scratching the surface, but I'll say that you're the CEO of the Mindful Living Studio, transformation catalyst and guide, executive function counselor, integrative yoga therapist, lifestyle management mentor, best-selling author of Jaguar Medicine, and so many more other attributes that we can claim. But I think it'll be great if we just get started in the conversation and you can tell us all more about how you started in this world, because I feel that you're someone that has quite a large impact on others. And where did you get all of your insight and your intuition and your knowledge and wisdom to share? So maybe I can pass the floor to you to get started on where did you start? What led you to this to begin with?
Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
My mother always told me when she learned she was pregnant at 4 months that she cried.
Oh.
So, and I know that's a terrible thing to tell a child, but it's like I was coming in to this life, even though I wasn't really welcome.
Mm.
And so, as a child, I had a very kind of, I'll say, magical life. Um, I was in multiple dimensions, if you will. But it was as a young adult that I discovered autobiography of a yogi, a
Mm.
classical text that really explains from a yogic view, I'll say quantum physics.
Okay.
And so even though I didn't fully comprehend it, of course, I don't claim to today, but it was so powerful. Um, I eventually took some classes in yoga, and this was Kripalu yoga, which is very embodiment oriented. It's not like an exercise program, it's a relationship with the body that's cultivated. Though you may find not every Kripalu yoga teacher is focused that way, especially today. Um, but it opened up a vast world, and things just started happening. Lots of, back then, I didn't call them downloads, but um, insights. I guess because of my childhood, I had a fairly developed intuition, and things would happen um, that would lead me in mysterious ways. And I knew enough to at least play with that, to follow it. And so that's kind of the beginning. But I was a high school dropout because I just couldn't find meaning in that. And there was a lot of turmoil at home.
Okay.
And so I dropped out of high school. I had good grades, but I just dropped out at age 16. And but eventually was led to higher education, and took me a long time because I was also a single mother, a single divorced mother,
Wow.
um, and with zero child support. You know, I was bringing home the bacon and
I
all.
know that story. I know that
Um,
story.
but I kept going with education, had a little pause in there because I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, wow.
Um, but
That's
back
a
then, the surgery took care of it. And back then, the treatments weren't, I'll say, pushed like they are today. So I wasn't poisoned,
right.
although it has its place. Um,
Right.
but all these things happened, all these different experiences, and I learned to accept that I could perceive the invisible to the eyes world and trust that as much or more than what's tangible here through our senses, the five senses. So that's a little bit.
And well, I was going to ask you about, because it's such an interesting leap from dropping out of high school to higher education. But if it was more because of chaos in the house than any real learning difficulties, or obstacles, then the desire for learning must have stayed within. And it sounds like you went through many chaotic years. And I found, just from my own experience, going through chaos from the outside helps us sometimes to turn inwards, because that's where we can find the quiet and the peace and the stability when everything around us just seems unmanageable and overwhelming. Is that what you found? Is that what drove you to your connections inside, inwards?
Yeah, it was unconscious. I didn't
Mm.
really self-reflect on it, but looking back, absolutely. But also that ability to, I'll say, leap,
Mm.
quit high school because it wasn't feeding anything in me. It didn't feel like at the time.
Right.
Um, that ability to trust the shift, the leap, even when it wasn't appreciated by others, it has really, my life has reflected that over and over and over again. And that it's not so much a rejection of one
Mm.
way as a being drawn to, a being magnetized by the next, at least, little piece or step.
Right.
Because for me, if I didn't sense that guidance, and I call it the GPS, the Galactic Positioning System.
Yeah, right.
We're only one galaxy in a sea of many,
Endless. Right.
however big it is. But just trusting that this needs to close. And
Mm.
oftentimes, whatever's next hasn't really presented itself, but it's a feeling that needs to shift and trusting it. So over and over and over again, I would do that. Leaving a position that's coveted by
Mm.
a lot of people, but that it just it served its purpose. Time to move on. Um, so yeah, that ability to just change. That's the key word.
Well, I love that you used the word leap as well, because I know for myself that has been a word for the last 2 years that has really guided my trajectory. And I know it's a word that is so infused with much deeper meanings, and it needs courage behind it, and it needs faith. One of my favorite sayings is leap and the net will appear. Right? Before you can leap, you have to have the faith that there's something on the other side that's waiting for you that makes all of that worth it. And for you to have done that so many times from such a young age is really a testament, I think, to the strength of your soul that was guiding you. Because it's not easy to do. I've only come to those places recently in life, So I'm really so inspired to hear your story about it, because it takes that, and it's almost hard to find the right words to describe that faith and that courage that it takes to leap and make the changes when you're trying to, people around you may be asking you to justify your decisions, and you don't even always have an answer for yourself, never mind anyone else.
Hmm.
And you can still make those moves.
Well,
Yeah,
and often, especially those closest to us, they will kind of write us off as
that's right.
you know unstable or um, irresponsible or something like that because they don't understand that there is this deeper, really this drive, which
Yeah.
I do believe is the soul, because every soul is here to um, to step up, to step out, and
That's right.
we all carry these gifts. And I'm still discovering what those are. But if we just try to fit a mold and wait for accolades from other people, we're probably going to miss the opportunity.
Oh, definitely. And then I think we end up emptying ourselves as well because, it becomes an empty shell of what we think we should be on the outside. And we're not fulfilling our inner purposes or giving
Mm-hmm,
ourselves true meaning.
mm-hmm,
So I agree with you. It's not easy. It takes resilience and an understanding too. I think that people will come at us with all of those epithets and judgments that often reflect the way that they feel about themselves or the way that they perceive their own lives and a lack of connection for themselves to their inner soul and purpose, and they need to you know point the finger at us to deflect from what they're
mm-hmm.
maybe not doing for themselves.
Yeah, we can frighten people because of
Hmm.
our freedom, our trust and faith, as you said, faith. And faith is a substance. Um,
Yes.
but at least for me, it's and resilience. It's you take a step and you get a little more faith and you get a little more resilience, and so it's that's how we get stronger is through agency, through acting, taking that step, and then maybe bolder and bolder steps.
Right, and it's not all dumped on you from the beginning in one full package. It is, like you said, it's something that you have to build slowly by taking those little leaps and taking a chance sometimes and releasing the judgment and surrendering. That's been a word that I've had to work on this week. A
Mhm,
lot of surrender around what's going on and just allowing things to be as they are and know that you'll find your way through whatever the challenges come. But you have to feel the
absolutely.
connection, yeah, to what you're doing. So, would you like to talk more about the different programs that you run? Because I think they're all so fascinating. You told me that you had run I think that was what you started with, the lifetime satisfaction uh, program, I think, and then vessel yoga, and I love the rest wise, rise wise
Mhm,
concept because for me, resting has always been an elusive, it's been something that's hard to surrender into, really resting
mhm,
peacefully and without guilt. So would you like to talk a little bit about the work that you do with your clients?
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, first, I've been in business in the brick and mortar world for 28 years.
Wow.
Although the past 2 years, I actually closed my physical studio and am going virtual. And it's been very slow opening, but that is
Mm,
imminent. And so some of what you said, um, those are more newer framing of my
okay.
programs. Rest Wise, Rise Wise is my core course, um, and it's an online course. And I offer some private coaching. There are 3 tiers to that. And then everyone is encouraged to come on an in-person retreat because
Cool.
our development accelerates exponentially when we
Mhm.
do that. But knowing what to do on retreat is really important. So people will be prepared because in all of my programs, the actual content is the individual's own life. We
Mm,
look at a process that changes the structure of the brain, if it needs to change,
mm,
to more, I'll say, holistic or multidimensional perceiving. Um, the executive or lifetime satisfaction is what I've renamed my executive coaching program,
okay.
um, because that is really the outcome we all want lifetime, and I use one word with capital L, capital T, life and time
Mhm.
satisfaction. Um, that's just what we want. When we stop and think about it, we want to enjoy this life. And so in the past, very, I'll say, successful, outwardly successful people would find me, and we would go through this executive coaching, which really develops the executive center of the brain. And that part of the brain, the front brain, it's an approach pattern, but also just leaving things open and looking, just observing. And of course, what really is observing through us when we're in the present moment without an agenda is
Mm.
the infinite consciousness.
Yeah.
And so that's one of, more of an outcome. And then vessel yoga has really developed over many years. I eventually gave it a name because the body is the holy temple. Yoga was never designed to be an exercise program. It was always
Right.
about the relationship of the individual to the infinite. Although, it's vast and there are many, many approaches. So as the years passed and I worked with different groups and different settings, I did a lot with corporate wellness. Um, I was taught here at the university, retired in 2012 from that gig. I was
Okay.
adjunct, so don't get a lot of benefits, but it was a great training ground just to be with different kinds of people, different age groups, different needs. And Vessel Yoga really downloaded, and then my master's is in education, curriculum design, and leadership development. So because I had that, I gradually shaped a curriculum, with downloads, at least for me, moving from this inspired, often vast, cosmic kind of perception into, I'll say, a lesson plan,
Okay.
how to package it so someone, even with none of that, can begin to tune in, which,
Right.
they're tuning into themselves. So I was able to gradually do that, and I feel it's ready now, um,
Okay.
to open, and it makes it so much fun. So from a training, developing the mind as a regulator, that's what we do in all the programs. When we bring the body and the mind together in this playful and powerful way and get physically, I think I am stronger now at age 71
No, you're not.
than
Wow.
I was
Wow.
at any point in my life. Um, and it is the simplicity of vessel yoga, but also the frequencies that come through. And that's the key, is to let it come through us. We
Mm.
cannot hold on to this. If we try to, grasp it and hold on to it and own it like, it's mine, it, it'll it'll devour us. I mean, it has to be a flow. It has to be received and given. But all of this comes along. I ran a pilot program for my online course, and um, everybody grasped it so quickly, and we
Mm.
had so much fun. And learning is meant to be fun. Education is about drawing forth the gifts that are inherent in the individual, not what, at least in this country, became more of this rote learning, that is not really education. So it's the truest sense of education, and it's joyful, it's fun, but challenging things will come up. But that's another way that we learn to go into, I'll say, the darkness, just whatever's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this yoga, is it something like someone who might be familiar with it, like you said, it's not meant for exercise, but is it based on similar poses with mindful exercises at the same time? Like, what is the actual practice? I'm so fascinated. And what would make it harder or easier for someone to really benefit from in terms of their own approach or their mindset when they're coming in?
Well, the biggest challenge over the years, and I've seen a lot of athletes, especially in my private practice, um, is to get people off of doing, imposing, making the body do something, something they've learned before, which, they can still have that, but we're not doing that.
Right.
We're learning to be, and being is the infinite consciousness. So getting off of this imposing things on the vessel, cultivating a deep sense of inner listening and trust. But what happens quickly for most people is as we begin to open the fascia structure, and that opens the nadis, which are tiny, tiny energy channels. And as that structure begins to open, and most of the practice is actually done reclining. That's
Okay.
what I recommend. Where you're just really relaxed and you might make a little micro shift in a very intentional way. And I offer things, but the individual really has to take the reins and make it their own, because every moment is a new moment. And if we're just trying to do, sun salutations or whatever that are beneficial, then we're going to miss it. We're going to miss the new embodiment that's wanting to birth in the vessel. And so that's the initiation of the body as the holy temple, when the individual says, you know what, I'm off of a plan. I've shown up, I'm here, and I'm willing to take this inner adventure. And it's quite addictive. I have a 2-hour practice just about every evening.
Oh, wow.
And I could do way more, because it's really meditation.
Okay.
And the definition of meditation is absorption, where you're absorbed in the infinite now, off of the idea of time, which is a human construct.
Yes.
And so that happens very quickly with vessel yoga. We're off of a plan. We've shown up. We're doing very simple things with a profound effect. But there is a period for most people of, and I love the work of John Sarno, who was a MD pain management specialist, who back pain in particular. But then as he was at New York University Medical Center for, I guess, most of his career, wrote a number of books. And the last book he wrote was The Divided Mind, because he concluded that pain, all pain, that we perceive, physical pain, is because of emotional pain. And so as we begin going through the structures of the human vessel, most people have compartmentalized, because we didn't know what to do with it, and we had to get on with the job and the kids and whatever. But now we're in this different phase of life, and so those pockets are going to open. But if we're coming from a place of kindness and love and self-respect, it typically will open just enough that we can begin to integrate a little bit. And then whenever, the next moment or 5 days or a month or whenever, another little bit. It's like these layers opening up and integrating. And it can be, it can be scary, but we learn to embrace the journey. And it brings me great joy to observe the joy that arises in people, and then their whole life will often change. They're more effective, in their family life, in their work life, or whatever it is they do. They actually begin to live life.
It's almost like infusing love into every cell, right? It's really infusing the vessel with that energy that, you know, the body, as we've said, and you've said that the emotional pain is transferred into a physical manifestation.
Mhm,
So if you can infuse that positive, loving feeling into the physical, right, and the two work together, as you had said, body and mind. You had said that in our first conversation too.
mhm.
um my what was the it's on your website, mind body soul, am I right? I'm blanking on
Our mind,
your
body, being.
mind body being, exactly, right?
Mhm,
It's all deeply connected. And what you said about the distinction, or the shift away from doing into being, is such an important, it was a new concept to me when I first, came across it from one of my mentors a few years ago. I was like, what do you mean being? Like, we're so consumed with doing, and how do we do that? And
mhm,
our lives just wrap us up in everything we have to do. Being feels like a foreign concept, and often leaves us feeling, I think, guilty, or that we're doing something wrong, or we're slacking off, we're not fulfilling our potential if we just take the time to be. But it's actually the opposite. That concept has been flipped for us, because I think being is what helps fill your potential, right? Helps you live up to your potential. It gives you that internal space and quiet to integrate, to heal.
mhm. Well, research shows, and this is in all kinds of organizations, private, government, um, that almost every project fails, like 80%. And and people, vast amounts of money and other resources go into, we've got the list and all this is happening. And most of it is just a waste. So people aren't able to use executive function, which is just really um, observation,
Mm.
and say, do I really need to do this, or is something trying to redirect me here? Because we get on those to-do lists, and I advise people, like, do away with that. I mean, sure, you could have an intention to do one thing or maybe two, but then just back off, because the universe, consciousness, infinite wisdom, I'll say, has a plan, and the plan is heaven on earth. And the only way that'll happen is through individuals discovering that that's who they are. We are that that presence of kindness and love. And you said that beautifully earlier. It's all about love.
It is, and meaning and purpose, right? And like you said, those to-do lists, we mistake those to-do lists with our purpose. I do that myself. So, I mean, I keep a list of the things I want to do in my work, and the things I have to take care of in my life. But I've also had to learn that that's a guideline. So what I can accomplish, okay. And if I can't get to it, then there's no repercussion on me, because if I come down on myself, if I'm hard on myself about not completing it, that's a physical impact, right? I'm creating a stress in my body. I'm creating inflammation in my body. It's not healthy, right? It's not giving me any health benefits. So it can be a loose guideline. And if I, am able to do it, wonderful. And if not, also wonderful, because sometimes in those moments, like you said, the universe has its plan. It has its trajectory for us. And by
Mhm.
not imposing our human, ideas about what we think we need to do, it leaves the space for, I think, what's supposed to happen or come our way. It leaves us space to see things that we might not have seen otherwise because our blinders are on. So yes, there is the need for that. And this world, so many people in this world live by those blinders and keep their minds focused, and that's why they have a hard time to access, I think, that internal quiet, the love that they don't, even show themselves.
Mhm.
um, all of that has been, it's such a joy for me to speak to people like you and speak this language, because I spent so much of my life in that mindset.
Mhm.
And it's been the last few years where I've really done so much work on myself to learn and give myself that space and appreciate the integration and that quiet brings.
Mhm.
So it's always novel, and I'm always so happy to learn too, and learn more and more.
Mhm. Well, there's a lot of
What that
science
brings.
now, evidence that every cell in the body has to communicate with every other cell
Yeah.
effectively, and so much happens when we claim, really learn to be quiet, because we can be quiet, inwardly quiet and absorbed in that quiet, even if we're cranking out work. It can be there. Like top athletes, they are in the zone, but they're at the top of their game at the same time. And we can all live that way with that kind of flow. But also to know that if it's something we're really here to do, and for whatever reason, like day after day, you can't quite get to that, that we think, oh, I need to do that in order to get to wherever. Divine intelligence is working behind the scenes. So we may not get to it, but the divine is getting to it. And that's why we want to interface with the field, and that's really what this executive function, as I teach it, is to hold off on collapsing the particles, because everything is simultaneously a wave and a particle. That is the physics.
That's right.
And we collapse, or people, the particles get collapsed, and that's what we call reality. But the more we can hold off on collapsing those particles and let the divine intelligence kind of rework structures and
That's
create
right.
receptivity and whatever's involved, then, well, I didn't get to it. But guess what? The divine got to it. And if I'm not supposed to do that, if it's not what's going to get me to the full expression
That's
of
right.
what I'm here to do, then it's okay. I let it go. You know? And so it's a much kinder way to be, and we sleep better, and
Oh, definitely. It's a gentleness with ourselves, right? We're here to be kind and gentle, but we need to start with us and understand that we're all part of a divine plan. I mean, I know I've learned with my intuition, when I talk about want something I want to do, I already feel it in the energy. I feel it in my stomach. I can't even describe what that feeling is. It's just a knowing. And I can do everything I need to do towards that goal. And there will be obstacles, there will be delays, and in the end, it won't happen. and I've learned to already pre-identify that energy, so I don't put so much effort into trying to force that to happen, because I'll already know, yeah, no, that's not something that I'm meant to do, so I'm going to shift away from that, because eventually it won't happen anyways, right? I've just spent so much energy being frustrated and pushing, trying to get the square peg into the hole, right? And it just doesn't happen. And
Mhm.
I've learned that on an energetic level, there are signs out there that the universe shares to let you know, no, 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 you're getting diverted. This isn't where you're meant to go. And a lot of us don't listen, or a lot of us aren't able to hear it.
Mhm.
And when you can identify it, it makes all the difference for how you can move through your life. Right. So,
Well,
and yeah, what you were saying about the part, physics and particles, that's a lot of what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about in his books as well. We really we call things into existence by bringing our focus to them.
mhm.
Right. So
He's a great teacher when I've
he's
had this.
incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
individuation, because oftentimes people have been lured into, or just not knowing, someone else's agenda, someone else's plan, sort of
Mm.
mimicking another person instead of individuating, allowing the individual expression to birth.
Right. I mean, because we can't understand everybody we're interacting with either, right? So we can be diverted, and I think from those purposes as well. Is that what you're getting at?
Um, I somehow there's a disconnect in that. So maybe say that again.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand with what you said. I don't think I understood it
Oh,
the way
okay.
you meant it.
Okay. Well, let me try again if you want.
Yeah.
Um, Individuation, which is a term that Carl Jung came up with,
Okay.
and he was a contemporary of Freud. Everybody knows Freud. Um, but we're here to individuate, to be a unique expression, an individual human. And so oftentimes people, and I see this a lot as I've spent more and more time on the web, especially Facebook,
Mm.
somebody else has the plan for you and they're going to change your mindset and they're going to impose, whatever. Um, and in many cases, it's not going to bring the outcome that people want, which is, joy and happiness and a lifetime satisfaction. Um, so when we individuate, it's like the caterpillar has to crawl away and create this cocoon and hang out with itself for a while and actually devour itself before it then comes out as a magnificent butterfly. And it doesn't come out fast. There's a whole process
Mhm.
in the coming out. So the whole individuation of pulling out of herd thinking, or what
Mm.
worked for one person, which can be wonderful and we can celebrate it, but it may not be our path. And so getting off of that, and I'll say coaching, I have used that word, but however we help an individual to find that inner guidance system and to learn to trust it and have faith in it,
Mhm.
which, nobody's created that curriculum. You can't, it's impossible.
Yeah, so I think I did mostly understand what you were saying, and maybe just the way that I expressed it or returned it to you wasn't clear. But because when you said about a person's agenda originally, what I understood, and I understand exactly what you mean now, is that sometimes we encounter other guides or coaches who can take us away from what we're really meant to do, because we think that that's what well, they might have the answers I'm looking for, and divert us from our plan. But to individuate, really, I think, comes down to finding all of that from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And any mentors or coaches need to understand who you are in
Mm-hmm.
order to help to properly guide you, and not guide you on the path that they think you need to be on, or for their own purposes, in a direction that serves them and not the individual.
Mm-hmm. No
Yeah.
one has the answers for us. I mean, they can encourage and guide. I really like that word, guide.
Yeah.
But not this imposition of, you know, we'll change your mindset.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm always open to hearing new approaches and perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that while I know that there's so much inside myself that can give me answers, I'm always looking for something that maybe I haven't thought of, but I will always take the time to evaluate it for myself and understand whether that resonates for me or doesn't. And I think that's what people need to do, right? Guides are wonderful, and I think they're important. Everybody at some point is either a guide or has guides in their lives, or both. But at the end of the day, the ultimate judgment call, maybe judgment is too strong, but the ultimate evaluation comes from within us,
Mm-hmm.
of if that really speaks to our soul purpose, to who we are, and
Mm-hmm.
elevates us, and keeps us on the path that we're meant to walk.
Well, there is synchronicity, and I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what you were alluding to, where, we do meet a person or we see something, hear something, and it's communicating. It's the universe communicating with us,
Yeah.
and we feel it. It is a resonance, and an attunement happens, and and it can seem so off course, but when we're awake enough to get that, um, it's important, and it we perceive it, or I perceive it as coming from outside a
Mhm.
person, just some print somewhere, but really it's coming from inside. It's just sort of
Mhm.
an outer validation of what's cooking inside. Yeah, it's really fun to think about all of this.
It does. It really lifts me up, because it helps to feel part of a grander design, especially when things are chaotic, either in personal lives or the world, and the world around us. It really helps to feel that there's something much bigger than us that we're a part of. And at the same time, that our story and what we're here for in itself is so special and unique, right? It's that duality, I think, of being part of something, and at the same time, you are all right. Everything you are is what's so special, that you are contributing to the world, and you
Mhm.
make the difference. So it really helps to move through this life with that understanding. Once, I've awoken to that, and those of us who are awakened to that, I think, carry a
Mhm.
lighter energy with them. And it has helped me step back so much from the minutia of daily life or daily interactions, and invest so much less energy into those moments, and have that energy to invest in my own growth, and the good that I can bring to others, and how I can, share that uplifting energy with others, rather than being bogged down by small details that, maybe aren't really for us to even bother to pay attention to.
Well, it is all
Yeah.
energy. It's all frequency and resonance, um, and we're at the cusp of truly a magnificent, I believe, um, time on Earth
Mhm.
where um, it's it seems there's kind of two camps,
Yes.
but anyone can awaken and participate in the true wealth um, that we're talking about, and it can happen so fast, or there can be more and more suffering from clinging really to a strictly Newtonian view, if we
Yeah.
wanted to use that
Right. The
way.
cause and effect. Eh?
And just say, the quantum view has always been there. It just wasn't articulated by science. It was articulated by all the ancient people, the indigenous people. They knew of this resonance and this conscious participation. So it's ancient, but
Well, yeah.
it's all coming together.
I think it's all resurfacing. I think we experienced quite a great forgetting over the last few thousand years, and I think we're all relearning and rediscovering, ancient wisdom that it would benefit all of us to awaken to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really can't believe that we're almost at an hour because I get so immersed when I speak with you. I just love it so much. I hope we can do this again. Before we sign off, I'm going to ask you if there's a book, because I'm also a book lover and my life has been spent with books. To me, these shows have to incorporate something about
Mhm.
books, and I'd love to know what has inspired you, something that stood out to you in your
Mhm.
readings to share with the audience.
Well, let me say first that I consider myself a bridger, people who are ready to kind of walk across that bridge into a new paradigm,
Mm.
and so have show and tell. I don't know if it'll show up right, but yeah, it did.
Okay.
So, Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton,
Okay.
who is a stem cell biologist, and he just has a great wealth of knowledge, and he shares things in a very playful way. And he has a great personal story too. So that's an excellent book, and it won a science award, best books, science award. You would
Amazing.
appreciate that as former librarian.
Yes. Well, but I'll put that title in the show notes for anyone who wants to
Mhm.
look that up, and I'm going to put that on my to be read list to
And he
order.
has some other books. One more recent than that is called The Honeymoon Effect, which
Okay.
is really about living with this amazing joy and happiness. And then do sign up for his monthly newsletter because it's a hoot. The man is so funny, and he's having so much fun on the planet sharing this amazing knowledge. He was stuck in the halls of academia for many years, so he's dancing now.
Sure.
But that's a really good book to to look at the science in a quantum view, and he gets into epigenetics and all of that,
Yeah.
um, which it's how we get programmed in our cells and everything, and it's just conditioning, it's just programming, and we can break free from that. So he's a good teacher.
Well, thank you for that. Before we go, is there something you'd like to share as a nugget of wisdom to leave the audience with before we sign off? Something that resonates with you that you'd like to share?
Well, it's really what we've been talking about,
Mm.
but the answer is inside of you. And learning to trust that and learning to let it speak. And that's everything that I offer is about developing that relationship. But it's already there. It's just hidden. It's just covered up. But it's there fully. It's there fully. And so allowing that to germinate and blossom.
Definitely something that we all need to incorporate and keep in mind. So, where can our audience find you?
Well, I have a website that I'm
Mhm.
updating, mindfullivingstudio.com. I also have mindfullivingstudioglobal.com,
Okay.
but they go to the same website. And vesselyoga.com, they all go to the same place. And then I am on LinkedIn. I'm fairly new over there and enjoying getting to know a few people. Uh, fairly active on Facebook, um, enjoying meeting people from all over and all walks of life. But those are the main places. And so,
Perfect. I will put all of those links. I'll put all those links for you for our audience in the show notes so they can find you. And I want to thank you so much. This is such a pleasure, and I'm so honored that you joined me for this first episode of Soul Speak. And I hope we can do this again soon.
yes,
And
I'd love
I wish
to.
you all
And
the
I'm
best.
deeply honored. I
Thank
haven't done much of this, but to be
you.
your
Oh,
first
you're
guest
wonderful.
is great.
You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great day.